Blessings, blessings, blessings beyond imagination, everyone. We're about to start this wonderful, amazing interview with the one and only Preston Coyote Vargas, author of Cala F'Iya. And I am Love Tashia Asante. I'm your host of the Window TV show. And I'm so excited and so honored to share this time with one of our greats, with one of our amazing authors. So before we get started, I just want to tell you a little bit about this book and this amazing, amazing vision that he had to write this book. I am deeply honored to interview our very own Preston Coyote Vargas, a powerful writer and storyteller who has penned the first in a series of novels capturing the beauty of California's indigenous history, or herstory as we call it. Cala F'Iya also speaks to the ancestral healing needed to restore peace to the land that we know as California. So for all you California buffs out there, today you're going to learn a little bit more about the history of California, but you're also going to view it through the lens of the creator of this series. So I'm really excited about this. So you're able to learn more about the author, the book series, and the legacy in this conversation. But if you want to have Preston come in for a book talk, you can visit www.calafia.com, and I'll put that link up right now so you have access to it. You can copy it down. If you're tuning in right now, please share the video. Please let folks know about this wonderful, wonderful compilation of work. And remember, this is the first in a series of books. So without further ado, I want to bring up our beloved. I want to introduce you to this brilliant mind, this community organizer, spiritual teacher, academic. He is doing so much to make this planet better, to make this world better, both through his book, Cala F'Iya, and his writing. Welcome, welcome. Come on in, everybody. And so it is just, I already know that we're going to be watching this at the movies soon. I already know that this book is going to win every award that there is, because it is a story that we all need to know about, that we all need to understand the importance of. So without further ado, I want to welcome you, Preston Coyote Vargas, author of Cala F'Iya.
Thank you. Thank you, Love. Thank you for having me.
Well, I have some questions for you, as you know.
Absolutely.
And I am so, so excited that I got to be part of this process of you birthing this amazing book. And I can only say that I know it has to be spirit, because the way that you wove the story together, the way that you wove the characters together and connected them with nature, with spirit, with the ancestors, it is so magical, and it is so deeply healing to everyone that reads it. I've been reading some of the early praise for this book, and this book just hit the airways, family. So if you don't have your copy, go to Amazon today. Let's just like blow up. He's already released the book. He's had thousands of people already on top of it and writing reviews and singing praises for this writing. But today we want to make sure that everyone here understands the power of what Baba has created with this book. So tell us a little bit about the history of California and why you decided to use this as the backdrop for your novel.
Absolutely. I think for me, the reason why I decided is because this story asked to be told in many ways. Living in California, I've had a lot of time to make relationship with the land, as well as the people who are currently here. I'm originally from the East Coast, and it was always important to me and my family to be really rooted and grounded and place-based. So that meant learning the plants and the animals and what you can grow and eat. And that was how I arrived in California 15-ish years ago. And there is a myth of Cala F'Iya. I mean, when colonial settlers came from Spain to California, this land was populated with people already, and populated with people that had a relationship with the land and each other. Complex, right? This idea of an open wilderness, is quite a myth, and is part of the myth that humans are separate from nature. In fact, the ecology of California, fire ecology, natural grass, waterways, were all maintained by indigenous folks, the first peoples here. When settlers came, they racially fetishized folks here, creating a myth of Cala F'Iya. It was very likely that they were referring to Baja California and folks that lived in that area back in the 1500s. So that's the 16th century, right? And Las Surgas Esplandian is a Spanish a collection of short stories and novels where Cala F'Iya in written form first arises as a Black, they call her Amazon queen because that was the term that they had in those days, or warrior queen who rides atop griffins and rules over a magical island of California. And this story is really both, I think, it's clearly patriarchal. It's clearly locked in, the religious code of the time. It, in some ways, fetishizes and exotifies and eroticizes Black bodies, brown bodies, and at the same time minimizes them and their history and their story. And so where I come in is not necessarily on the historical aspects of indigenous folks here, but really reweaving this myth of Black women who are a matrifocal or a women-run society living off the coast of California. And I've weaved in, or I wove in, spiritual teachings, relationships with the land, really to kind of say like what would this story be in the Cala F'Iya's own words? How would she tell her own story? How would her story be told about her from her people? There's the myth or the legend does not start when colonial settlers arrive. People have lives before then and after then. And so that's where this story picks up, before the arrival of folks from Spain, before the crowning of Cala F'Iya, which is a term, right? A mighty queen. So
yes, very good, very good. Yes, I was really shocked as I began to learn more about Cala F'Iya because you had written this book. So I was like, this is some interesting history about these Amazonian queens and these powerhouses, and that they were among the early settlers of California is something that we're not taught about in the history books. So that's yet another reason to support this book, to read this book and to share this book, because it actually awakens her history. And even though it's a fiction story, it has so much truth in it in terms of the power and the mysticism and the magic of these women, and the fact that they were shamans in and of their own right. Now, I don't want to give spoilers. I don't want to tell too much, but I want y'all to just get a glimpse of this amazing cover for this book. I'm going to show just a little bit of it there. So you can see it up close. The art in the book is a story in and of itself. It is absolutely incredible. And you have to buy the book to see the art, right? So we're not going to give you all of that, but you will be transfixed and just captivated by the art, because the art is a story in and of itself. And every image that you chose with the artist that you worked with, every image that you chose really has spiritual meaning. So y'all, when you read the book, you're going to get it. When you see these images come alive in your body, in your heart, in your mind, in your spirit. And that is truly what happens as you read this book. Now, you also, I know we talked about the history of California and why you chose that as the backdrop. I mean, you could have chose any of these states, but California also being the seat of so much change, I think that has something to do with Cala F'Iya, right? So much evolution, but I'm jumping ahead. Let me come back. One of my favorite characters in the book is Laya. Is that right? Did I pronounce her name right?
Leah.
Leah. Leah. I always call her Lie. I don't know what that is about because she comes to transmute the lies and bring truth. That's what I believe it is. But anyway, this lead character, the heroine, one of the stars of Cala F'Iya, the book, can you tell us about how you created her, how you saw her, how you birthed her, why you gave her, especially, this is my question, because she has so many dimensions. She is mother, she is daughter, she is queen, she is he, she has no gender, she is non-binary, she transcends gender. They transcend gender in the book. And at one point, they become almost fluid and they embody everything that the universe, that the great one created to me, you know, in terms of nature, the sky, the sun, the heavens. Welcome, everybody. Come on in. I see y'all coming in. Lafayette Talon, blessings, Antoinette, blessings, Tina, blessings, Alfreda, blessings. Thank you, Pinky, so much for tagging everybody. Io Oyaseke, we appreciate you so much. Welcome, welcome. If you're just tuning in, I am interviewing Preston Coyote Vargas, author of the brand new novel series, Cala F'Iya. And this is part one, the initiation. So it is, and we're deep into the conversation now. So join on in. I'm asking Preston now about Leah and what was the inspiration for her as you created this character who really supersedes all boundaries and ideas of what we would think they would be. Tell us about Leah. What you can without giving spoilers.
I know that's so challenging
Right, right. That's
as an
hard.
author because I'm living and like the story
Right,
is so fresh for
right.
me, and I just want to clue everybody in. And um, I have a particular way of co-creating story. So I consider myself an oracular artist. That means that I will typically go into kind of like a meditative state, really, um, and listen to like the waves of creativity as they come, the story as it's unfolding. It's like waking dreaming, but with the land and with the ancestors. And in many ways, the character of Leah arises from some of my experiences, a lot of experiences of family and friends, but she's kind of you know, I want to say almost generated from like whispers of the ancestors and the land coming up. There, as an author, like you start to, or I start to seed and create this world and these characters, but they do take on a life of their own as the story develops. But that always comes through my own perception and my own limitations, right? And my own desires and drives. I can't really separate myself from the art. I think a really great artist acknowledges the ways in which what they receive from the world as inspiration comes through a filter, and then what they present comes out, but also through a filter as well. So yeah, she has inherited some of my quirky, not so flattering characteristics, some of my more flattering characteristics, some of the things I see in folks I admire, some of the things I see in folks I'm projecting about and challenge me. Um, but my relationship with her really is almost like I'm her diary, and it's like, dear diary, and I'm like, that's when I start writing. That's when Coyote starts, scribbling on.
Wow. Well, one of the things that I love is, and you're so right, because Leah is, she's sweet. They are sweet. They are compassionate. They are also fiery and they're like a hellraiser, which I love those kind of people. All of you, right?
Exactly. Yeah,
But
she's born with this
yes.
impending prophecy. I mean, she's one of a collection of folks that are born under the conditions of prophecy of, will they, elevate, will they refine their experience, will they go through the spiritual challenges to become the next leader of their people. So it's almost like, the a very classic story of somebody struggling with their destiny as it unfolds. But at the same time, how do we get out of just the hero's journey or just the heroine's
Mm,
journey? It's maybe where this starts off, but I see Leah taking it and the other characters taking it somewhere else.
yes. And she is so committed. She reminds me of, in the on the continent of Africa and in other countries when you look at the lives of shamans, right? And most of them are really thrown into the role. Pretty much nobody was sent volunteers to be a
Nope.
healer, right? Or a
It's
shaman.
not the path you choose
Right,
if you want
right.
a smooth life.
It's not the fun path. And so she has been assigned to this role probably lifetimes before she ever arrived in the physical, is what I take from the story. And but her courage, and again, you'll have to read the book to really understand the magnitude of what the Leah character takes on, and to be so committed to it, and willing to risk everything she cares about and loves, and even her own life. She's willing to
Mhm.
risk her own life to fulfill this cause. And you capture it so elegantly and so beautifully, but to me, with such an original voice in fiction. I think that the book world, the fiction world, is like it's so refreshing to read a story that's so original, right? That you bring it from an angle of both the mysticism, the spirituality, but also having these characters embrace an identity that really right now in the world is under fire.
Mhm.
I think is so important because our books have so much power and our writings have so much power, which is why certain books are being banned that are written by African American and other people of color authors. But I want to get back to the story. Cala F'Iya, if you're just tuning in, welcome, welcome. Thank you all for being here. Please share the video. If you don't have a copy of this book, run out and get it today. You can get it immediately, I think, on Kindle. Like you can't wait for it to come in the mail, which this is the kind of book, if there was a book that you should have a print copy of, it is this one. Get Cala F'Iya because the art is incredible. And with the story, it just takes you so deeply into it. But let's talk a little bit about the antagonists and their overarching agenda in this book. Because just as powerful as this heroine is, this lead character, the antagonist, the people that Leah is up against, oh my God. I mean, there's one that's like a supernatural. I'll just give y'all that little tidbit. And that name sticks in my head. I'm not going to tell it to you because it's a surprise. And I want y'all to read it and go, that's who Ianifa was talking about. But these bad people, I'm gonna just call them that, or bad things that Leah has to fight. Tell me how you came up with this energy and understood its ability to decimate not only humans, but the planet.
Mhm. I worked for a long time in the counseling field, especially with folks who are impacted by trauma. And one of the beautiful things that I saw was that folks were able to go through a process of, while setting healthy boundaries of how they want to be treated, at the same time recognize that it's not necessarily, people aren't necessarily evil or bad inherently. Everyone has the possibility for goodness and also the possibility to harm others. And so, what I wanted to translate in this story from the beginning is that there is a wave of something coming. It's almost like a miasma, like an a toxic cloud or a toxic sludge or energetically a toxic field that's coming in. And it is starting to arrive here in the 1500s, but it's older, and it's this flavor of greed. It's this flavor of control. It's this flavor of domination. It's the flavor that comes with patriarchy and with colonization and with the isms, right? And that is what is seeping into folks and starting to kind of poison them from the inside so that they act in ways that are against their cultures of reciprocity or against treating other folks as humans. So you've got folks here that are born on California, right, the island, who unknowingly have tasted some of this poison and are starting to bring war to their own folks, right? You've got Sinmei Bo, and you've got Gretka, and you've got Salam, and there's this feeling of these folks don't play by the cultural acceptances of reciprocity and of kindness and of truth and honesty. And they're starting to herald this field of, or this arrival of war, of devastation, of environmental degradation. That's almost like a consuming spirit, that like its only drive is to eat and destroy, and it will eventually even eat and destroy the controllers who created it, right? Like that's we're starting off as this thing is emerging, that will then become capitalism, and then become colonialism, that will then become racism and transphobia in in our present day 2024. And we're seeing it now as it's arriving into folks.
Yes.
And some of the characters are taking it on, and some of the characters are dipping into it and calling it forth and raising some malevolent creatures to do their bidding, that are feeding off of this malignant energy that's arising.
Yes. So much, to me, echoing and mirroring what is actually happening in the world right now when we look at the powers that be. But that's another workshop. We won't get into that today. Today we're talking about Cala F'Iya. If you're just tuning in, I am Love Tashia Santi. I'm here with the author Preston Coyote Vargas, who is the author of a groundbreaking new series, a novel series, and he's just published the first installation called Cala F'Iya. And this book is centered around the initiation, part 1. And it is a absolutely compelling, spellbinding story. You're drawn in from page 1, and you can't put that book down until you find out what happens. I was like, no! Like screaming in some pages as I'm reading this story. So you also did something very revolutionary in Cala F'Iya, where you decided to make several of the characters non-binary and gender non-conforming. And so their gender is fluid. And you present them through the lens of human beings, not confined by an assigned gender. Could you talk a little bit about your decision to do that?
There's that old saying, write what you know.
Yes.
And this is really one of the impacts of writing what you know, writing what I know. I'm really blessed to both have courageous people around me who are fierce and supported by loving networks so they can be their true selves. Yes. And I live in a place in the country, in the US, where it is maybe a bit more supported or protected to express and be your true self. And so I have a lot of beloveds who are gender non-binary, gender non-conforming. I have a lot of beloveds who are of different ages, different socioeconomic conditions, different races. Most folks actually live in a bubble, and the people that they associate with are the same sexual orientation, the same, gender, living in the same gender binary, typically the same race or ethnicity, same socioeconomic class. And I've just been absolutely blessed, but I've also sought out to be in spaces that are diverse. And so I write about people in in my real world. My real lived experience is with my beloveds who are gender non-binary, gender non-conforming, and transgender. And I also am aware of the history pre-colonialization, pre-patriarchy, right? Pre-Abrahamic monolithic faiths, right? If this island is matrifocal, if it is, led by folks who identify as women, then patriarchy is really not in play. And gender binaries and controlling gender and making sure that cis males are powerful and everybody else has no power, that's part of patriarchy. So really, there's not this contention about, strict gender codes and strict gender binaries. It's actually more fluid because there's not the power struggle to keep women and gender non-binary folks subjugated to cis men.
Wow. I think, again, the responsibility and the freedom that we have as writers to present new perceptions and understandings of communities, marginalized communities, as well as to expose oppression, to expose racism, to expose sexism. I think that we have a great opportunity using the pages and the words that we write. And it's so wonderful that you had the courage to do this and to talk, to bring these particular individuals, their stories forward, and to create visibility for the plight of, non-binary, gender non-conforming, as well as our trans brothers and sisters, to humanize, to show the contributions to society, to humanity, to the world, to the betterment of the world, which is so rarely captured, right? We see all the other images, partying, it's like every image seems to be someone with, bells on their nipples, which is nothing wrong with that. I love that too. That's beautiful too. But that's only one dimension of who gender non-conforming, trans, or non-binary people are. And so it's important. Yes, go on.
Well, I was going to say, yeah, with my privilege of being cis male, cisgender, I was assigned male at birth. I identify as male. I do have an amount of privilege to open the door. And so it's important for me to utilize that privilege with thought, at the same time recognizing that a lot of transgender and gender non-binary folks, gender non-conforming folks, end up having their story told by somebody else who's cisgender because folks won't listen to them or recognize them or share space, right? So while I'm in many ways championing a wider experience of life, I also want to make space for transgender and gender non-binary folks to tell their own story in their own words. That's not my lived experience, so I'm not the best advocate, and at the same time, I'm a co-conspirator of liberation in the ways that I can. So I've often seen there are characters in my book who may end up having a sideline story one day, and maybe that story is going to be told by a different author. I might collaborate with them on here's some key points so it ties into the main, Cala F'Iya's journey. But this character is a Black trans woman, and you identify and live your life as a Black trans woman. You probably are the best author to write her particular storyline in this series. There are different ways, I think, to use power and privilege to empower other folks.
Exactly. And I think you have done such an exceptional job, not only as a writer in this book, but in your work, in your everyday life, including with the institution that you work for. You ensure that diverse voices are celebrated and are uplifted. And I really want to thank you publicly here for your commitment to that and your continued action. You don't just talk about it, you do the work to capture those words and to create more visibility for the beauty as well as expression of the struggle. So thank you for that. You also have captured one of the other elements that I love about Cala F'Iya. And welcome everybody. I see y'all coming in. Come on in. And this is a discussion. So we want your comments. Please post your comments. I will read them to Preston He's here to answer questions. If you've read the book already, he will answer questions about the book and anything you want to know about these characters. Well, not anything, because some of it is spoilers if we tell you too much and we want you to read the book. But another piece that I really love is the connections that you make between your characters and nature. I mean, you have like these birds. I ain't gonna tell y'all too much, but oh my God, the flight and the use of these beautiful rare birds that you bring in. Like some of them, I had to look up. I had to learn about these birds, and they have both metaphysical meaning and symbolism to them. This is what I mean by the thought, the type of mind you have to be able to create this. So you connected some of the characters with animals, with birds, with and I don't want to say too much because I want y'all to read the book. And you also embodied the messenger aspect between animals and human, because a lot of times we don't look at the connections that we have and the way that the animals, the four-legged, two-legged, the way that they communicate with us and the planet, and how important and intricate they are in the well-being of the planet. So again, I just honor you. If this is, if ASPCA, if you're watching, you need to have Preston come and do a book talk, because again, the work that you do, it's just so many layers. It's so deep. It's not only empowering and healing women, it's not only telling the stories of marginalized people in this book, but also the beauty that you capture in nature and the preservation of nature, of our ecosystems in this world, of the animals, those forces that are so powerful, but in some ways can't protect themselves. You capture all of this in this novel. So tell us about the use of these birds. If you could just talk about that one aspect, and again, don't give spoilers, and the way that you connected them to matriarchal societies. Um, anyway, and then and how you segue that into the initiatory journey, because one of the beautiful things that happen is a woman, a spirit, because she becomes more than just woman, they become a fluid being, a being that is a representative of the Most High. But anyway, I'm telling too much. I'm stopped. But can you talk about the connection of the birds, the animals, to matriarchal societies, and talk a little bit about that and your inspiration for that?
Absolutely. I think about human beings as teenagers, as species. I think about the human species as a teenager in terms of species, just going through its kind of like angsty teenage phase, hasn't quite figured out its, position on the planet. So many other species are much older than us. And humans and many humans have forgotten how to listen to the feedback loop of nature. Nature communicates with
Yes.
itself. The forest is communicating, the trees are communicating, the river, and they're living in a dynamic balance, right? And so as a human being, how do I become more embodied, more human, maybe less mechanical, maybe less analytical thought, more in tune with what the universe around me is trying to share, but also conspire. Like, what if the universe is actually conspiring for my greatest good and the greatest good of all beings? And so that means that everything has some level of consciousness, some level of agency. How does spirit show up? Well, it can show up in, a myriad of different forms. In this book, it happens to show up in one of the ways as these bird messengers, this seemingly innocuous, interaction with a bird that
Yes.
will some way lead down the road to consequences or to action in cause and effect. Birds, for me, I've always been enchanted by their ability to sing, to fly, to be both
Yes.
on heaven and earth, but
Yes.
also in, historical iconography. A lot of cultures have, across continents and
Mhm.
across times have
Yes.
identified spiritual messengers as connected with birds, especially matriarchal spiritual messengers and beings as connected with birds. I mean, there is this aspect of protecting the nest, of laying the eggs, of incubating, of creation, but also of a type of support called flocking. And when birds are in their flocks or their murmurations, right? As like a flock moves and breathes, their wings, as they're flapping, are lifting air currents so they can ride with each other, supporting each other, calling back on each other. And that's how I also see political actions as being the most potent, right? If I want to join a political action supporting Native American rights, indigenous rights, or maybe missing and murdered indigenous women, right? There's so many missing and murdered indigenous women. If I want to support that politically, that action to find and get justice and protect these women, as a non-native person, I can flock just like birds do,
Yeah.
right? I can let the folks who it's
Teach.
their movement lead, and I can flock with them. I can fly with them. I can soar. I can support. I can honk on. I can be a co-conspirator. So I see it. It's intersectional. It's the spiritual message. It's the historical iconography. It is the literal, like, behaviors and actions of birds, and the energetic medicine as well.
Yes.
And that's kind
Oh,
of just one sort of creature, one type of creature that I've incorporated. I ask myself a lot of times, like, wow, what a different world. What would be so different in this world if we honored and respected the agency and the voice and the beingness of mountains, of rivers, of
yeah.
wetlands? It wouldn't just preserve the environment for the environment's sake, but for our own health and wellness. So even if it's, a human selfish act to
Mhm.
preserve, to honor the voices of the land and the land spirits, it will benefit all of us.
Yes, absolutely. And I think you capture this so beautifully in Cala F'Iya, the scenery that you show, the scenery that you create, the things in nature that happen. And again, I'm being ambiguous for a reason because y'all have to go read this book. And thank you, Iyo Oyaseke. She posted the link where you can purchase the book. Please write a review after you get the book and read it because it really helps us as authors
Mm-hmm.
to write those reviews and to put your ranking in there. And welcome, Brother Olise Gundaramola, all the way from Nigeria, West Africa. So happy you could join us today. Thank you, Noble Trinity Media, D Pepper Massey, for sharing this video everywhere. I appreciate y'all so much. And again, I'm going to put the link up. So if you don't have the book, and I know most of you who I'm seeing already have the book right now, but if you are one of the very few people who haven't gotten this fabulous new book, I'm going to post a link where you can get it. And I'm also going to post the link of Baba's website. You can go and learn more about the work that Preston Coyote Vargas, author of Cala F'Iya, is doing. You can invite him to come out to your school, to your cultural organization, to your community center, to your bookstore, to do a book talk and talk about the work of Cala F'Iya and the movement. To me, it's more than just a book. It is truly a movement in terms of what he has created on the pages of this book. You also address the eco piece so beautifully. And I really hope that eco organizations will support this book because I think you, even though again it's fiction, but you bring this cause. I mean, in Florida, as some of you know, they just voted to stop all climate regulations, like ended legislation that has been in place for decades to protect our environment. So we're not shocked, of course, but again, we start to understand the importance of, having clean air to breathe, of having clean water to drink, of preserving our places in nature where there isn't buildings or machinery. And you, again, there's scenes in this book that made me stop and just breathe. They're like, certain places. Again, I'm trying not to tell y'all so much good juice, but like there's a water scene that I was just there. I was just there with Leah, right? and her partner when this scene took place. And then there's one cliffhanger again. I'm not gonna give it to y'all, and you gonna don't lose it. Just keep reading. That's all I'll say. Keep reading. But um, but you capture to me this eco piece. All jokes aside, when we see the devastation that can happen to a country, to a city, to a place, because eco sustainability is not addressed. And I think it's so brave and so important that you talked about this in this novel. Can you answer why you chose to put our eco sustainability as part of the backdrop in the story of Cala F'Iya?
Yeah, I don't say always, but for most of my life considered myself eco-spiritual. My spiritual traditions are tied to living on this earth and making it a more beautiful and loving place.
Yes.
And so that means it's going to take generations, which means we need to have a planet that can be inhabited for generations. But also, my dad's ancestry um, includes indigenous folks as well as African American. My mom's ancestry is Cape Verdean and come from a family of folks who were cranberry farmers and
Mm,
blueberry farmers, and so there has been in my family, generational ties to
mm,
being on the land.
mm,
That is also where I go, when things are too overwhelming for my little bitty human body and human consciousness to take in, especially all the things that are happening in this world. I find myself sinking into the expanse of the ocean or the mountains or the redwoods to share both the grief, but also the joys and the hopes and the dreams that all of this land has really witnessed. It's a spiritual experience for me to go on a hike, to go swimming.
mm,
To lay in the sun. Um, so I could not, and as I said before, I am acutely aware that human beings are a young species and learning how to live in
mm,
harmony on this planet right now.
mm,
And so this is also, I think, a reminder, like in a fiction form, but a reminder of everything is dependent. Our lives are dependent on the life and health of this planet.
mm. Wow. That how humans can live in harmony with nature. I had to put that in the chat because this is so, so, so important. Antoinette says, yes, warriors, and it was announced that all of the coastal beaches in Southern California would be unsafe to swim in over the Memorial Day weekend due to unsafe bacterial content in the waters. So, again, when we look at the work and the movement of the Cala F'Iya book, and I know Iya Oyaseke has posted the link on Amazon. This it's so important that we not only read this story, but share this book with others, have discussions about it around the kitchen table, in the living room, over dinner, so that we can start to educate, the community and our families on simple ways that we can, help the ecosystem, whether it's composting or not killing a bee, or there's different things that we can do. And I tell you, when I think about your bees, that's a whole other workshop. We have to bring you back on just to talk about bees. But these are things that we can do in our own backyard. We don't have to have loads of money to just be kind to the planet, to do things in ways that support the beauty of the planet. And these characters in Cala F'Iya have such a consciousness about that. And it's one of the things that I love most about them. I mean, not only the fact that they're kick butt warriors who transcend their physical bodies. I mean, they're already my best friends, right? But just the fact that these characters, and I think there's a line that when as authors, as writers, we're careful not to cross, where we don't become preachy in our books, especially fiction stories, but we let the characters tell the story. And you do that very skillfully. Like it's like you're not preaching, you're not telling people what to do, but through the lives of these characters, their struggles, their victories, their losses, right? Because some battles in a story are lost. That's part of life. But you are able to teach people something through their example. Can you share just a couple things because you have to read a page or two of this story? We can't let you get off, Baba, without reading a little something from this book, y'all. But tell us just before we go to that part, tell us two things that you hope readers will take away with them after they read the final page of part one of the Cala F'Iya series. Just two things that you hope people will take with them.
Well, the first is desire to read more. I want folks coming away a little thirsty, um, both to, get hyped about sharing the story and also to look forward to the next one, but also to dream into it. Like, I feel that when folks really uh, hold on to, adopt, love a story, they start to energetically input into the story. It becomes more alive because more people are sharing it. And in some ways, it speaks back to me as an author, of a wider perspective, of a wider story that I could have probably not imagined without, the thought streams and spiritual, inputs of other folks and other ancestors and other places of land that are calling to be acknowledged through, storytelling and fiction. The other one is like, my joy in life is re-enchanting the world around me and the world around other folks. Like that is one of the things I want folks to, when they close the book, to be re-enchanted with the world around them, to see like the beauty and the magic on the page reflected in the beauty and the magic of the world around them, and want to live in it even more, and also want to create life affirming systems, life affirming actions, life affirming communities. um yeah, I'll pause there. I think,
Ooh, life
there
affirm.
is this liberatory, if I could pick a third thing, it would be that folks find liberation in the way that they need to find liberation, that it inspires them to travel down their own path and journey of whatever initiatory phase they're in their life, to liberate themselves, liberate others, so that they can, do the medicine that they came to do in this world at this time.
Yes, beautiful, beautiful. And I just want to read you a couple comments. Um, Pinky Dewberry Kennedy Oyaseke writes, Preston Vargas is an incredible writer and majestic human being, warrior from another world, author, imagination unleashed, ancestors speak. So very true. So very true. Every single thing. And Tina Wright says, I love that takeaway. I must get the book. Awesome, awesome. Yes, you will love it, Tina. Oh my God. You will love it. Let me just say that. Um, you're so absolutely on point with finding liberation. Somebody put that in the chat. Finding liberation in the ways that feel right for you. And I think that's so important that we feel liberated. And I tell you that when you talk about some characters in a book who liberate themselves, in Cala F'Iya, these characters, they refuse to be defined by anything in this world or anyone who tells them what they should be or how they should act. And one that I missed, I want to just back up really quick, and we have time, so have time for the reading. You have a YA character in there. YA is writer code, y'all, for young adult, who I just love. I fell in love with Pono. He's another one of my favorite characters in the book because he moves with such deep wisdom. They move with such deep wisdom, with strength and power. And I thought it was so important and even original to have this intergenerational aspect. You have 3 or 4 generations of people that speak in this book. But Pono, and their bravery, their loyalty to not only the people in their community and family, but to the cause. Like, it was very clear to me that Pono made these sacrifices that they make in the story. And I'm not going to tell y'all too much. Y'all got to meet Pono, honey. But they made it because they're dedicated to making the planet better. And that, again, is another character who was willing to give anything and to serve in a way that was so selfless. And to see you capture this essence in a young soul, to me, was really beautiful, because we don't see enough of that and the honor of that in our young people. So could you talk about the creation and inspiration for Pono?
Mhm. I grew up with grandparents in the house, that intergenerational communication, right? And so my grandfather taught me how to garden and would take me on odd jobs of landscaping and washing his car, and just taught me a great work ethic, but also how to be in the land. My grandmother would tell me amazing stories and chill out with me and watch the Golden Girls late at night when I was like, 5 or 6. And so that are like those are like some of my dearest memories and blessings I had growing up, is to grow up in an intergenerational household where the wisdom of the elders who are getting ready to travel back to spirit meets the incoming wisdom of the new generation, of the youngsters coming in, and that cultural sharing, both my the new ideas of the youngsters kind of vivifies and enlivens
Mhm.
the experience of the elders who may be, you know, stuck in some of their ways and need to learn some of the new things, but yet the wisdom of lived experience is transferred over to the elders in the time we share together. And there's so many ways in which children today and young folks are not treated as human beings, but rather as property. And this comes, again, from patriarchy and the control over women and children. And you can do things to a child, you can beat a child in a way you can't raise your hand to an adult, because that's an assault when you do it to an adult. But when you do it to a child, it's allowed, it's legally allowed. And there are ways in which I feel like, if we treated our young as more like human beings with agency, with dreams, with desires, with hopes, with bodily respect, maybe we would see, some different actions and different rollouts of what's happening as they turn into their late teens and their 20s. And I'm constantly inspired by my nibblings, right? My sister's kids. I'm constantly inspired by their brilliance. I've taught I've taught environmental education everywhere from preschool all the way up through high school. And the genius of young folks is so often overlooked. I think a council of elders is fantastic, but a council of wisdom keepers that's intergenerational is what really,
Mm.
what our
Ooh.
communities really need.
I got chills when you said
Yeah.
that, Papa.
These youngsters coming in are coming in with a different set of skills, different set of spiritual wisdoms. They're living in a different, growing up in a different milieu that I grew up in, 35, 45 years ago. And there's like a deep longing thing for connection on both ends, the older ends and the younger ends.
So yeah, to me, you encompass that in Pono's character. Like, you pulled that, all your experiences from a child, as well as the work that you do in the community. You captured that in Pono's character.
Mm-hmm.
And now to learn that, this is authentic, like this is part of what you've seen, you've observed through your own eyes and experienced with your own hands and through your service. And that even makes it more important. And thank you, just everyone who came on today. I see y'all asking about where the book is available. Iya Oyaseke posted the link on Amazon directly to the book. And they're also asking about audiobooks. And someone
I
said,
love audiobooks, and it's going to take a little while to get this into
okay.
to audio.
And
But
someone
yep, I'm one
says,
of those that love audiobooks.
oh, okay. So turn. Tina says, so turn. I was recently speaking about the benefits of multiple generations. And oh, thank you. They posted the link. Thank you, Ia Oyaseke, for posting the link to the book. That's where you can get the print version, family. And it's available anywhere books are sold. And again, if y'all who are on this call, there's a lot of people who are affiliated with different organizations. We really need the message in Cala F'Iya to get out everywhere. And it is doing great, but we need even more. So please invite Baba out. He will come out and speak. He will do a book talk via Zoom. So please, please invite him out and support. Thank you. Thank you. She says, I can't wait to get it. Shay, thank you so much, family, for your support.
Thank you.
But I think all of these things lead us to one place, and that is, when is part 2 coming out? Quit playing, Baba. Wait, I'm waiting now. You know I'm hungry for it.
Yeah,
Because
there's something about like sacred numbers for me in my process, right? And I'm like, ooh, 9 months in between feels like a good
okay,
gestation
okay.
period. Like, I wrote these so that folks who, folks have busy lives, and so many of my beloveds that are like, oh, that story looks so good, but it's 500 pages. By the time I get halfway through, I got to stop and do this for the kids or like go back to work after the weekend, and I'm going to lose my space. So I wrote these so that in 3 days, if you're an avid reader, you can sit down for a weekend and finish them. But that also meant that I needed to space them out relatively quickly. So, this came out at February 29th was the
Wow,
release of
so it
this one, and
just came
the
out.
ebook
Yeah.
comes out June 15th, which is my birthday. And so the part 2, you can expect part 2 at the end of November, beginning of December.
Oh my goodness. So we need Cala F'Iya parties, okay? We need to have some house parties and have some food and just read this book. Well, I thank you so much, Baba. I would love it if you would bless us with a little bit of reading
Absolutely.
from. Show the cover one more time to the people who just came on a little bit later.
Absolutely.
I want y'all to see the cover. Oh my God. It is a portal that you feel like
Mhm.
you're entering when you read this book. And when I tell you, few novels have illustration, professional and beautiful, to me, iconic illustration. But at the beginning of each chapter of the book, family, is an image. Oh, you're getting a treat. Now, he don't do this. So y'all can see just a little glimpse of the art in this book. Right.
Yeah.
Okay. And each image, you could almost do a meditation to me. Like some of those images I just sit with and go, okay, what is this? It's ministering to me. It's healing me, on a particular day. Like I need to see that image, or, the doorway, the initiation, you know, the warrior, just to tap into that warrior. So please, please, yes. Io Yaseke wrote, truly a portal. Yes, it is. And so anyway, without further ado, I want to introduce our beloved Preston Coyote Vargas, who's going to now read an excerpt from the Cala F'Iya novel. Y'all show your love. I know you're doing virtual hand claps. Welcome, my beloved.
And love, maybe you can just give me a finger when it's time to wrap up so
Okay.
I don't go over. Yeah,
Just,
absolutely.
yeah,
So
I don't know if I'll stop you. I
I'm
don't
gonna
know. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Go
I'm
on, Bo.
gonna skip ahead a little bit and just, not too far, but chapter 3, it's the prophecy. Leah had both longed for and dreaded this occasion. Today's ritual would open the way for someone to be claimed as the next Cala F'Iya. She desperately wanted to be the one. Secretly, she feared the responsibility. Any warrior worth her golden armor knew there was power to be had in recognizing and naming one's fear. She embraced it and wore it, as a badge of honor. I'm afraid of never measuring up to the great Cala F'Iyas before me, she said out loud to herself. Her voice broke the silence of the jungle night. The forest swallowed her words as soon as they were spoken. It was odd for the forest to be silent. Typically, it would be awash with song, nocturnal songbirds singing their melodies, toads bellowing bass beats, insects might strum and chirp, an errant monkey shrieking alerts to warn the others of hunting civets. On rare occasion, mountain jaguars might cry out in longing for a mate. This night, not a single frog croaked. All waited in anticipation for one of the 6 shining daughters to claim her destiny. In 2,700 years, the island of Cala F'Iya had known 8 great queens. Each one had been ritually named Cala F'Iya, and the reigning Cala F'Iya was said to have inherited the accumulated power and wisdom of her predecessors. Cala F'Iya was the great queen reborn again and again. It had been 8 generations since the last Cala F'Iya was called to the people. Leah wondered why another queen was being claimed now. Leah had heard the story many times about how 21 years ago, a prophecy heralded the birth of the new Cala F'Iya. And it was her very own brother that had been the oracle. Leah's older brother Pono was only 5 years old when Hanut, the monkey god, took hold of him. Hanut was not gentle in his possession of his chosen oracles. No one in the busy marketplace had anticipated a prophecy telling. Usually these things were done with the ceremonial proceedings of Hanut's monkey priests and priestesses. One unassuming day at market, Pono's body had twisted and jerked for a brief moment before he went rigid and then went into a calm. His eyes turned completely white and his head craned back. His silk sarong whipped madly about him. Not one of the colored market tents wavered. His high screams pitched high above the noisy crowd and vendors advertising their wares. The women managing the marketplace turned in horror as the small child screamed with the voice of chattering macaques. His body lifted into the air, his small bare feet hovered a hand's breadth above the ground as the likeness of the Oridena fell over him. The market goers stood frozen in place with transfixed glares as the baritone voice of an adult god boomed. Cala F'Iya, she comes again. The greatest of queens returns to us. Pono's mother, Shaharo, moved quickly to catch her falling son. It should have been difficult to move quickly as she was pregnant with Leah at the time. Yet her warrior's body was almost as quick moving heavy with child as it was moving with heavy armor and weapons. The boy felt so light in her arms. It was as if his insides had been replaced with the same mist that clouded his eyes. Never had she heard of a child so young being aspected by the Oridena Hanut. Tutu, Shaharo's lover, rushed to her side. The stout older woman had been haggling with dragon fruit vendors at the other side of the town square. It had taken her quite some time to push her way through the gawking crowd, but finally she made her way through. Together, Tutu, Shaharo, and a strong woman from the marketplace carried the limp body of Pono out of the market. Together, they made their way to the monkey shrine at the edge of town. Pono was laid out on a wooden table at the Hanut shrine. The leafy branches of the banyan tree shielded him from the heat of the midday sun. The ancient table had been carved of banyan wood and oiled until it shone. Wooden figures of monkeys playing, running, mating, swinging through the treetops had been carved into the table's 4 thick legs. The lip of the table had been carved with many likenesses of the monkey humanoid face of Hanut. Each face held a different expression. Typically, the Hanut table would be used only for divination. The old diviner living at the shrine had insisted that Pono would not regain consciousness until the divination was completed. Shaharo knew that monkey priestesses were often mad. Though they were revered and respected, no caring mother wished for her child to be claimed by Hanut. Most of the prophets became disinterested in earthly lives. They obsessed over studying the past and sensing the future. Their abilities to see future after future branched to other realities like the limbs of the banyan tree. Sometimes the visions destabilized their mental state. Shaharo believed it was the insistence of living like hermits that really drove the prophets insane. The old women of her village often said that Hanut devotees would die of hunger and thirst if it wasn't for the sacred lion-tailed macaques of the banyan tree who brought them food and drink. There were cruel jokes people shared about Hanut prophets and how they became the babies of monkeys. Their journeys would end with them becoming feeble-minded, toothless, and dependent on the tree primates. Shaharo often wondered how anyone so pulled into the innumerable paths of infinite futures could expect to have a life in the normal world, especially if they relinquished all tethers to human relationships. Shaharo was determined not to let that happen to her child. She would not lose him to madness. But should we stop there?
Okay, that's a great jump off point. You are listening. We just made history today with the reading of the author Preston Coyote Vargas of Cala F'Iya, a live reading and dramatic reading, an excerpt from the book from chapter 3. You want to get this book, family, and curl up with a nice cup of cocoa, whatever it is you like to drink, and go into the world of this amazing, I don't even want to call her a goddess because she's beyond that. She's everything. She's life. They are life. So I want to thank all of you who have come today, who have shared the space with us. If you're watching on YouTube, if you're watching in the window TV show, room, group, or you're watching live on Asante Love Facebook, please share the video with friends, with family, but most importantly, get a copy of the book and write a review for the author, because that really helps us as writers. And we want to thank you, Dr. Preston Coyote Vargas. We know that this is only the beginning, and we look forward to reading the second, the third, the fourth, the fifth, and so on and so on. It's like, to me, get ready, Harry Potter, because Cala F'Iya is coming. She is here, right? She is born, and she has so much to say, and they have so much to say, and so much to teach us through your pen. So we love you. We send light and blessings as you travel the journey in ensuring this legacy continues. And we celebrate and honor the legacy of Cala F'Iya, because this is a real legacy. It's a true history in the movement that this book creates for us and for that legacy of the true story of California. So thank you again for coming out, family. You have the links. And I look forward to seeing your picture holding the book, as well as reading the review and hearing more about what you think and what you experienced after you read it. And thank you so much, Preston, for being with us here on The Window TV. With love, Tashia Asante. Blessings and love, everybody. Enjoy your Sunday. This is a great kickoff for your Sunday. And I'll look for all of your input and thoughts. And share the video. Please share the video right now. All right. Thank you so much, Preston.